What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to the Monster Bass channel. I am Jeff and this is Paul with Burley Fishing, and today we're going to talk to you about how to rig every single bait that you'll potentially get in this month's bag. This is the September bag, correct?
Yeah.
Correct. And we're going to take a look at all the baits in it. We'll do a quick run through of all of them, and then we're going to talk about how we would fish them. And it might be a little bit different
I'm
from person to person.
Fun of every single idea that
I'm gonna choose a thing, and Paul's gonna say, that's dumb, I do it this way. So, I mean, this should be a good, fun, bantery video.
Just like the podcast.
Just like the podcast. I mean, you're getting the podcast on video. And if you don't listen to our podcast, you should do that, because we go on right after Monster Bass does their live every single Thursday. We're live 8 p.m. Eastern. And of course, if you guys liked the content from today's video, by the end of the video, if you still can stand us, maybe go subscribe to our channel as well, Burley Fishing, and smash a like on a video and pop a comment in there and say that you came over from Monster Bass. And of course, this is on Monster Bass's channel, so maybe subscribe to them too. All right, let's get into it.
We're gonna walk through all the baits first. So before we talk about rigging, before we talk about action and all that other stuff that's really fun, we're gonna do a quick, we're gonna burn all through all the baits.
You gotta know what you're getting. All right, and this is potentials, by the way. Every box you're gonna get about 7 to 8 baits, depending on the region that you're in. Monster Bass divides the country into regions to try to give you more appropriate baits depending on the time of year. That's part of the reason you get the bag. All right, so first up, we got the X-Zone Deception Worm. That is a 6-inch trick worm, and it is fantastic. Comes in a color Houdini. We got the X-Zone Muscleback Finesse Craw, little 3.25-inch craw bait there in watermelon. We got Deep Creek Flukes. This is a straight tail fluke. You can see it right there. Pretty fantastic. Comes in watermelon candy.
A lot of purple in that watermelon candy.
Lots of purple.
Awesome color.
We got Optimum Baits line through swim bait right there. The Rick Clunn Hail Mary. This is a heavy duty 3/4 ounce gigantic big old fat lipless right there. We got the Bass Hick spinner bait right here. A little white chartreuse with the painted willow blade. Double willow, pretty fantastic. Painted willow blade in chartreuse. Up here, we live in Michigan. That's where we fish most of the year. You can't go wrong with white and chartreuse.
100%. This is what I think is the crown jewel of this month's bag. This is the Monster Bass Mad Max Popper. Kind of a see-through blank with like a brown, orange, stripe pattern on there. Just absolutely sweet bait. It's got the tail at the back, which is one of my favorite features of any popper. Got the red hook in the front, and really I think my favorite part about this bait, it's a do-it-all bait. Medium-sized popper, definitely my favorite bait in this bag.
And if you want to see our ugly mugs some more and maybe hear a sweet voice of Paul here
Me.
for a voiceover, you can go check out the promo video that Monster Bass had done by Sam Moore Media. It is fantastic. We feel lucky to be involved in that video, and it was high quality. Go check out the hype reel on the Mad Max Popper.
Absolutely. Next bait you're going to see is the Z-Baitco Twig. These are sweet. Comes in a Monster Bass exclusive color. One of the coolest parts about this company is they can do limited run colors, so I'm a big fan. Next up is the Lucky Strike Shallow Smoothie. This one is in pearl purple.
Just say that 10 times fast.
Yeah, I literally can barely
pearl
say it one
purple,
time
pearl
fast.
purple. You're just gonna be spitting everywhere.
Yeah.
Pearl purple.
Phenomenal time of year to have a medium diving crankbait. This one is a 3/8 ounce, which I think is absolutely perfect. Want to be slinging the treble.
Wow.
Next up, we've got the Fat Bastard Frog. This one is in crime scene. Dude, you cannot go wrong with that one.
The enunciation on that was pretty fantastic.
This is why they have me doing the videos. Fat Bastard Frog in crime scene. Awesome frog. Can't go wrong with getting a frog in the bag. I think that's it. Oh, you also you're going to get some variation of these hooks. Here are a bunch of hooks. We got everything from a straight shank hook all the way down to an EWG. Great for rigging whatever plastics are in your bag. So you're going to get some of these. Normally, if we were in Jeff's office, I would throw these everywhere, but in my office, so these will go gently on the workbench.
It's been throwing stuff at me anyways. All right, so what you came here for, though, is how we're going to rig and fish these things. So we're talking gear that we're using, how we're going to rig it if it's a plastic, for example, how we're using these hooks, this time of year, fall transition, moving into fall time, and where we might be fishing these things. So let's get into that. Boom, spinnerbait. Guess how we're rigging it? Like this, that's it. And then we're casting out there and spinning it back.
That's not true at all. So
it is not true.
The one thing I want to throw out there with a spinnerbait, you're going to be fishing specifically in the fall. Fish are going to start pushing up bait fish. They're going to be chasing bait fish patterns. So this is a good time to throw a paddle tail. But I will say, running it naked with just a trailer hook as an addition is a great way to run this bait. It's more about how deep you want this to go. Double willow blades are actually going to hang up probably a little bit higher in the water column. So if you want to get down a little lower, you can add a plastic to bring the bait down. Or if you just want it to stay up in the water column, you want to burn it quickly, just either run it how it is or add a trailer hook.
So I actually love throwing these on a high gear ratio reel. So my spinnerbait setup right now is an 8-2-1, I believe. It's a Lew's Tournament MP reel that I'm running this on. I go with like a 6'9", 6'11" range like rod, and I'm just gonna cast this thing out as far as I can, reel it back along those weed lines, and that allows me to like play the water column way more. With a high gear ratio, I know I can burn it if I want to. It's easy to do, it's high gear ratio, or I can just turn the crank real slow and run it lower in the water column. Another thing you can do, Paul just brought up, is you just take a plastic and you thread that baby on there, or a trailer hook too if you're getting short struck. Might thread on one of the baits we just got in the box, which is that Deep Creek Lures Fluke. And I actually really love throwing like a straight tail on this. I've really come around to this. I don't know if you guys have seen this before, but you know, if you throw a paddle tail on there, it's actually gonna rise up, or a craw, it's gonna rise up in the water column more than you might think. So throwing something like a Fluke straight tail like that, or I actually have been throwing on medium, maybe not this size, but like medium to smaller spinnerbaits, the Z-Man Trick Shots, which is supposed to be a drop shot bait, but you can Ned rig it and then it makes a great trailer on here, much like this, just with a flatter tail, right? So that's a good option. That actually is a double whammy right here, because that's how I might be fishing that Fluke right now. So spinnerbait, fantastic choice. One of my favorite all-time fall baits, fantastic.
Next is a frog, right? So frog you might not think is a great fall bait, but topwater in the fall is actually really good. And if you're somewhere maybe in one of the southern regions, especially, there's going to be a lot of places and times for you. This is going to be a great time to throw a frog.
Jealous.
Not that there are bad times, but this is going to be exceptionally good times.
It's always a good time.
My one tip with this white frog is actually going to be the best time to use a white frog is when it's really cloudy out. The reason I say that is when it's cloudy and there's not a ton of sun coming directly into a fish's face, they're looking up more often. So when they're looking up and feeding up, it's a great time to put a frog up, and then you don't need to have like a darker bait to silhouette. This white frog is going to stick out really well. So that's my one tip for a white frog.
And you know, you got the tapered nose on this frog, so you know you can work this through the heavier cover. It's also got a really wide base. That right there is important because it's going to be walking a little bit better. So yeah, cast this thing up in the slop, put it around the pads, like put this thing somewhere you can't really put anything else, right? That's the whole point of a frog, but especially when you have that tapered nose there. Juicy little setup. Next up, we got that Lucky Strike shallow diving crankbait. So it's essentially a square bill. It's just a little bit longer, a little different body shape, kind of a combination between what you think of as a crankbait and what you think of as a square bill, but it's gonna do good. So I would treat it like a square bill. I'd cast this thing around cover. I'm looking for, you know, wood, cast to wood, rocks. I'm fishing this in the river. I got it out on our channel when we opened up the bag this month, and you know, this is a great color, I believe, for the rivers. And then when you got a shallow diving crankbait, I mean, you can't go wrong. So I'm looking for structure. I'm gonna run this thing around that, and also it's got a pretty heavy thud to it. So it's gonna work in that current situation and in dirtier water, because this is a dirty water color. That chartreuse and black is gonna pop really well.
Yep, my call out for this is actually going to be around what gear ratio to use. So a lot of guys on will tell you to use a slower gear ratio for like crankbaits and anything like moving body baits in the water, just like this. They'll say like a 6 to 1, 6.5 to 1, something like that. I actually really like a 7-1. Reason being, I just have to. You have to know that you're gonna slow it down. What I really like about having a 7 to 1 is being able to do whatever I need to do to vary the speed. I think one of the biggest things with fishing moving baits is when you get in this mode of just like cast, retreat, cast, retrieve, and you do the same thing over and over and over again. You think you're covering water, but you're actually not. Especially with square bills and medium to shallow diving body baits, you have to be able to change your retrieve speed. You have to be able to move it quickly, stop it, move it quickly 2 or 3 times like a jerk bait, and then slow it down or speed it up. So giving that 7 to 1, as long as you're comfortable with a really slow retrieve, I actually like having a higher gear ratio for medium diving to shallow diving square bill type baits like this one.
100%. So another call out on these types of crankbaits that I'm going to add to our next bait here, which is the Hail Mary lipless is that you want a moderate to slow action on the rod that you're using. You can definitely use a different action rod. You're just gonna be very mad about it. That's the deal. Like if you go moderate, slow action, you're gonna be happy because you're gonna lose less fish. These trebles right here are easy to shake when a fish uses the weight of this bait, which is heavy, to knock this thing loose, and they're really good at it. So if you've ever been frustrated by losing a fish at the boat, at the bank, just because it shook your lure, highly recommend get a real crankbait rod, and you will never look back, because I haven't. It's awesome.
Parabolic, medium, not medium fast. And then a little bit longer. I want maybe a foot longer than you would normally use. So I want to see a 7 foot plus. Even in a kayak.
Bomb it.
Yeah, even in a kayak, I want to see a 7 foot plus.
Yep.
It's just gonna work really better with those treble hook baits. The other thing too is it's called the Hail Mary. This is a long casting bait. It's designed to cast very far and also run very deep if you need.
How wide that is.
So having that extra length on the rod is just gonna make you fish this bait a little bit better than with a shorter rod.
Yeah. It's got a crazy taper to it. You can actually see the weight is written down on the front too, so 3/4 of an ounce. Comes in a couple different colors. We showed you the other color, little shad pattern right there that we also got. Another great option, but run it like a lipless. So around this time of year, what I'm gonna do with something like this is, bomb it out there and then yo-yo it back to the boat. So I'm gonna let it fall all the way down, and I'm gonna rip it all the way up. And because of this taper, you're gonna get a ton of action out of something like this. This thing vibes really heavy. I've had a chance to fish with this a bit. So when you're lifting that rod tip up, it's just going nuts to the surface. Then you're letting it fall again. So it looks like a struggling, dying bait fish. And you're covering the water column like crazy vertically on the way back to the boat. So again, the further you cast it out there and do that yo-yo effect, the more water you're covering, and someone's gonna smack it. Someone's gonna hit it.
Can confirm. I think we caught a fish on that first day out.
Can confirm. Has happened.
Next up is the Optimum Baits line through. This is a swim bait, and I don't know if this is going to show up here. I'm gonna ask Jeff to
hold that.
You
just put that treble in your mouth?
I don't know if you can see this, but yeah, you can. So inside the bait, there is actually a little tube for you to run your line directly through. It's going to come in here at the nose, come out here at the bottom, and after you run the line through the bait, through the bottom, you're gonna tie on this treble hook that it comes with. This is I don't wanna say it's a knockoff, it's like a different version of something like a mag draft. It's a little bit smaller version. It's still a pretty sizable swim bait. I think this is like 5 or 6 inches long. It's gotta be 6.
More reasonable size for up here.
Yes,
like you go further north.
Michigan is up here.
Yeah, up here in Michigan. I know we're not the furthest north of the entire nation, but it's pretty far north, and the fish will key in on smaller patterns, typically a lot more. So if you throw it, like this is, you're still gonna you're looking for bigs with something like this up here, but if you grab like the mag draft, like you basically are content in maybe catching a fish in about 6 or 7 outings.
Yeah.
It's a struggle bus to throw something huge.
And where I would throw this, honestly, if you can skip this into docks, that's actually what I would recommend doing. Shorter casts, or actually getting, so normally when you're kind of beating the bank, you get your boat positioned where you're facing the bank and you're casting up. I actually recommend getting as close to the bank as possible, casting out into open water and drawing it back to you. That's going to be the most, if fish are chasing bait patterns, they're actually coming from the deep and they're coming towards shore, and they're trying to push fish just like this one. So my recommendation is get to the bank, cast it out, and then retrieve it back towards the bank. And if you think this is going to get shredded, I think what you're going to see, what happens a lot with this line through setup, is when the fish takes this hook, this is actually the bait's actually going to travel up the line, and you're going to see all the damage done to the hook, not to the bait.
Yep, that is absolutely true. And like we mentioned with the Hail Mary, they're not going to be able to shake it, because try to shake this, it doesn't move it. There's nothing to knock it off. So because this slides up, that's sort of the benefit of doing a line through. And they sell like line through kits. You can punch a hole in basically any plastic and make it a line through, which is a cool idea. What I would do with this, because your idea was really dumb, is love you, is I would actually hook that into the bait just like that. And then you got these 2 trebles sticking out the bottom. Okay, it's still gonna pop off when a fish hits this, of course. It's just gonna fly right off like that. So we don't have to worry about, again, the bait getting shredded. But I've got this treble sort of pinned into the bait there, and I'm gonna run this kind of parallel to the bank, looking for those drop-offs and weed lines. Because, and I mentioned this on our channel too, like, I want a toothy critter. I'm going after a pike or something more specifically with this. Or if I know I'm on a big bass lake, then maybe I like luck and, you know, a couple of those would be sweet. But like the 1 and 2 pounders, they might hit this. I've seen.
I want big mama
seen it happen.
pounds for sure.
I want big ones.
Yeah,
I want big fall fish, man. All right, so we hyped this thing up a lot. So let's just talk about how we're gonna fish this. It's topwater, and this is really for fall. This is like my favorite topwater to throw. There are many other options, like walking baits are great as well. And then of course you can throw a frog. We're gonna be throwing the frog far less up here in Michigan, but again, you guys down south, super jealous. But the popper just gets it done. I mean, we can catch any fish with this. We're catching panfish to bass to pike, like all sorts of options with this. I love throwing these on the river personally. I mean, you're gonna hear us bring up the river a lot. The river is a really fun place to fish, especially in the spring and fall. So I'm gonna go out there and be popping this around fallen trees and rocks, boulders, stuff like that. Any sort of just barely submerged or around the surface area type of cover is gonna be a great option for this. And then on the lake, docks, boats, all around that, tall weeds, all around that stuff, right in front of like lily pads and different types of cover like that works really well. And what are we gonna throw this on?
So I'm throwing this on a 7/6 medium if it's a bait casting setup and I'm on open water. That's what I'm looking for.
Yep.
My favorite though is a 7.5 foot medium fast spinning rig actually. And if I'm in the river, I'm actually going with a really stiff, medium, light, extra fast. I just got a rod that's that exact spec, and that is the perfect bait for that. You're going to maintain contact with that fish and those treble hooks. You're not going to lose them. You don't have to have a giant hook set, and you don't need to punch. You've got 3 hook opportunities, and those are really sharp hooks. So it's going to be an easy hook set. Sweep it to the side. You are not losing that fish. I'm like beyond jacked. That is my favorite size popper, and just you can literally catch anything.
It's a great option.
There's also a bone color that I was trying to dig up, but I know it's in my boat. But there is a bone color that I'm telling you, if you get that one, just be like,
that is the win.
Thank you. I love all of them. Like, you can't go wrong, but that's one of my favorites.
If you got the bone in this month's bag,
just be like, thanks, Rick. Hook me up, bro.
you win. You're the winner. So fantastic option there. All right, so next up, we're gonna be jumping into all these plastics. So here's the deal. In the MB bags, you're getting some sort of hook just about every single month. And we understand. Hooks are boring. But guess what catches fish?
Wait.
Hooks.
The hook. Oh!
Yeah, it's the hook. I mean, you could throw the plastic out there. You would just be ruining the environment and killing fish. So, I mean, maybe don't do that. But if you rig it up to these hooks, then you can catch fish. All right, so let's talk about, we got a bunch of different hooks here. So we got some EWGs. You might have gotten those. You might have gotten the straight shank worm hooks. You might have gotten the standout drop shot hooks. You might have gotten these drop shot hooks. Look at those little tiny babies. You might have gotten the offset worm hooks, okay? All of which are coming from Daiichi or Stanley or Mustad, which are all great hook brands. So you got nothing to worry about there.
If you don't know about Daiichi, you really should. They manufacture some of the better hooks that are out there.
Absolutely. All right, so the plastic we got, we're each gonna rig one. No, let's just go ahead and show. I think this will be the fun part. All right, you guys, so we're gonna go plastic by plastic. We're gonna show you how we would rig this, and I think we made them different. We just rigged them next to each other and did completely different things the whole way. So this is gonna be good. First up, we got the Deep Creek Lures Fluke. This is how I would rig it. Weightless on an EWG, even red. Red's a good option. I mean, I'll go red hook. I'm not like a huge red hook guy, but it's what we got in the bag, and that's the goal today is rig what's in the bag, right? So there you go. Little Mustad EWG, Deep Creek Lures, Fluke, go.
Jeff took the easiest route.
Yeah, the most obvious.
Zero creativity.
That always catches things.
It does work really well.
You're welcome.
I got weird with it. So I took that Stanley long hook, not what this is technically made for, but honestly, I'm going to go ahead and Nico rig this. I'm going to take a nail weight. I'm going to put it right in the nose here, and I'm going to be hopping this back towards myself. This works really well if you've got like a rocky point and clear water where fish can see like you coming a mile away. Get as far away as you can, huck this bad boy, and then just hop it as slowly as you can back up the bank towards you. That will catch a fish, I promise you. And throw this anywhere you want, because it's completely weedless. But I'd say in shallower water right now, around grass, rock, laydowns, stuff like that, go after them. All right, so I got a double play for you on the next one, because this is the one where I went a little bit crazy, I thought. So we've got the Twig from Z Baits Co., and I rigged it 2 ways on a drop shot,
because we had extra hooks. So here's the number 6. Oh my God, can you see it? That's the number 6 drop shot hook from Daiichi. So it's itty bitty. So none of these plastics would like naturally work on this. So what I did is I cut the twig tail off and threw it on there. And I gotta tell you guys, if you drop shot this, especially if you're pan fishing, you wanna catch like a million bluegill, this will do it. This will work. Positively guarantee you. The other way is to do the old weedless setup right there. So you nose hook it and you just kind of like snub that nose right there. So that you can pull through cover much easier. And this is on that standout drop shot from Daiichi, which is a great option as well. So standouts, if you guys don't know, you Palomar knot right there. You take your tag end down through the eye of the hook there, and then you tie your weight on, right? And then you drop shot this. So you could trim this up, of course, any way you want. So go as long or as short as you want with that twig, but I'm gonna choose to drop shot it because it's a little 4-inch finesse worm.
Decent idea, kind of trash. Wouldn't have done that. So I'm actually taking that same Z-Dayco twig and I'm doing a wacky rig.
On the itty bitty one, huh?
I'm not doing, on the number 6 Daiichi hook. I'm not doing it weedless. I'm not doing it weighted wacky. I'm doing this on a drop shot. So I'm actually gonna rig this on a drop shot and it's gonna look like this in the water. I would use this technique when you think you have a really good shot at catching a fish. You're like, at that spot, there's a fish right there. Fish there. And you know there's a fish there. I'm gonna target that fish and I'm gonna put this right in front of its face and just leave it there tantalizingly.
Tantalizingly. Drop shot wacky.
Yep.
All right. All right.
So this is where I have two, similar to Jeff. So this is the X-Zone Deception Worm. It is a 6-inch finesse worm from X-Zone.
Definitely 6.
I took the standout hook and I trimmed that bad boy up. And what I'm relying on is there's a little air pocket cavity right there in the back of the tail. So not only am I getting the standout where this hook is going to be standing horizontally like this, but the air pockets are actually going to keep this up and moving. So I'm just nose hooking it, drop shot, and I'm taking advantage of the way that worm is constructed.
And it's already a very floaty plastic, so
it's gonna just be all over the place.
It's gonna be.
Do you want to go?
Would you say tantalizing?
Okay, you had an idea. I had an idea. We're using different hooks.
Bam!
Yeah!
So I went for the offset worm hook in this case for that deception worm, and you went for the EWG.
The only question I have is, are you going weightless? Weightless?
Yes, it's a trick worm, and I like to go weightless.
With that worm hook, I also like to go weightless. I think it's a more subtle looking hook. I'm gonna go with probably a 3/8 ounce at the most for this trick worm, and I'm gonna do in a Texas rig where I like the EWG better for a Texas rig in this scenario. So I'm gonna have a weight with mine.
So in either case, Texas rigging, and you can't go wrong with a good old Texas rig, and it's a trick worm, finesse. Works really well this time of year.
Absolutely.
Last one we had to get a little bit weird. Personally, the Muscleback Finesse Craw from X-Zone I would have on a Ned rig, 1000% of the time. So we didn't have any Ned rigs in this bag. So what we did is we
did in last month's bag.
We did some different stuff, last month we did. So this month we don't. I went ahead and took that Stanley straight shank and just rigged it up like so. Now, I understand there's a big backbone to this hook, so this part's gonna be real rigid, but the benefit of the Muscleback Finesse Craw is the floating claws. So I'm looking to just play up the action of the claws. That's my play.
And on that one, I'm gonna think about doing a Texas rig actually, unpegged.
Yeah, I'm not putting weight on this, by the way. It's a floating craw. I'm just gonna let this slow fall around structure, probably up banging the bank, man. That would be my move.
This one I think you could do weighted or unweighted. I just took that offset worm hook and stuck it in there. So similar to what Jeff did. My recommendation, the only time I'm actually gonna grab this size of hook for this type of bait is if I'm getting my claws nipped off. Like every time my claws are getting bit off and I'm missing those strikes, I'm gonna put the hook point as far back as I possibly can, and this is about as far back as you can get. While still being weedless. Weight or no weight, I think you're good either way.
All right, you guys, that was everything in the bag from this month. Rigged a whole bunch of different ways. Hopefully this was helpful for you, because if you're a subscriber of Monster Bass, you have these baits. So now you know what to go do with them. So take the bag, as long as you've got a rod to reel some line, and water preferably, and this bag, you're good to go.
You're fishing.
Right? Take it on out there. All right, you guys, get after them. If you guys like the content, of course, subscribe to Monster Bass. You can go subscribe to us as well over at Burley Fishing, and then we podcast right after Monster Bass every Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern. So hop from the MB Live, just ditch Rick, be like, later nerd, I'm out of here, and then come over and hang out with us because we're cooler. All right, let's get out of here, dude. We'll see you guys on the next video.